Hey Twisters and welcome hockey fans, Nick here, and I'm going to give you my predictions for the 2022-23 NHL season. Just before we get into this, I want to thank all of you out there. We just hit 5,000 subscribers. That's a fantastic milestone to reach to start the NHL season and before I take off for the Global Series, so I really appreciate the views, the shares, the comments, the likes, all that good stuff. Let's keep it rolling. This is going to be a wonderful season. All right, guys, let's get into my division predictions. So we're going to start in the Eastern Conference. You'll see here that I'm more conservative with the East, as I think that there needs to be another year until we see real significant churn in these two divisions. I've been a lot more aggressive with my Western Conference predictions. So anyway, we'll start with the Metropolitan Division. My division winner, the New York Rangers, a fantastic year last season. They've got one of the best defenses and the best goaltender, arguably, in the NHL, so that's why I have them at the top. In second, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. I really think this team is kind of underrated. They've been decimated by injuries the past couple of seasons, so let's say they're healthy for a full year. They bring back a lot of guys from this past season. I think they're going to be very good. I've got the Hurricanes in third. They do have some young players who are going to be called upon to serve kind of a higher role with this team this upcoming year, so maybe there's some growing pains there, but they're still a very good team. And then in fourth, I do have the Washington Capitals clinching a wild card number one. Yeah, I wanted to make a case maybe for the New Jersey Devils. I don't know if the New York Islanders are going to be quite that same team from like 2 years ago when they went to the conference final. So the Capitals, despite not having Backstrom or Tom Wilson to start the season, I think they can do just enough in this division to get back into the postseason. And then fifth, I had the Islanders. Sixth, I have New Jersey. I think they can still be pretty competitive for most of the season. Columbus Blue Jackets, they're a team that could really actually be in the top three this one season ahead, I would have to say. And then the Philadelphia Flyers, I think they're a lock to finish dead last. And here's the Atlantic Division. So at the top, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I have them clinching the number one overall seed in the Eastern Conference. Just too much firepower. Yeah, they made over their goaltending. I'm not a huge fan of that, but they can outscore their problems if need be. In second, I have Tampa. Yeah, they lost Andre Palat. They also lost Ryan McDonough. Still a fantastic team as it pertains to defense and goaltending, so I think they keep things rolling. I can't see them finishing outside of the top three. Florida, they did regress a little bit this offseason by trading away Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar. I still think they're very strong, though, with the likes of Barkov, Tkachuk. The backside is actually better than I think people give it credit for, and so is the goaltending, especially with how it finished last season. So I've got Florida still clinching a top three spot. And you see that my biggest change here in the Eastern Conference is the Ottawa Senators making it back to the playoffs for the first time since 2017. Yeah, they've got a great young forward group. They just added DeBrincat. They added Claude Giroux. Man, this team is going to be excellent, especially when they get Cam Talbot back. The goaltending is better than people give it credit for. And because Taylor Hall is going to be out for the full season, and because the Bruins are also going to be missing Charlie McAvoy and Brad Marchand for significant time to start this year, I see the Bruins actually falling out of the playoff picture. But then again, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they're able to rally things later in the year and make it as the fifth team in the playoffs in this division, which would mean the Capitals would get kicked out. But for now, I'll take Ottawa as the wild card number two. Detroit is a team that's definitely on the rise as well, and I think you can make the argument that they, or even the Buffalo Sabres, will challenge for a playoff spot this upcoming season. They are still kind of young in a few positions, so that's kind of one reason why, even though I have Ottawa, another young team ahead of all of them, they have that veteran leadership with Claude Giroux, and I mean, in terms of pure offense, I still think they're the best of that group I just mentioned there. And the Montreal Canadiens, I have them bringing up the rear in eighth. No surprise there. All right, now it's time for the Western Conference. So, as I mentioned earlier, I am more aggressive in my predictions here. We're going to begin with the Central. And before I filmed this video, I saw on Twitter that there was the possibility of Jason Robertson signing with the Dallas Stars. And that makes a huge difference when I'm giving my division predictions here. So, number one, at the top of the Central Division, I've got the Avalanche. They're still a fantastic team. They lost a couple guys in the offseason, right? Kadri, Burakovsky, but they're a next man up team. You saw what they got out of Nichushkin this past season, Arturi Lehkonen when he came over at the trade deadline. Yeah, they've made over the goaltending a little bit. I am a bit concerned there, but with how good their defense is, this team could put anybody in net and they'll still be fantastic. In second, I've got the St. Louis Blues. This team still has 8 of their 20-plus goal scorers from this past season. I am a little concerned about the goaltending with Jordan Binnington getting the lion's share of work now that Ville Husso is in Detroit. But that being said, this team was fantastic in regulation. They were really good at special teams as well, so I think that's a great foundation for the Blues to still finish top 3. Third, I have the Dallas Stars. I really think that this team could fall in under the radar and make a deep run this year. They brought in Peter DeBoer, and even though he has his critics out there, he is always a really good coach in his first year with a new team. So Stanley Cup final with the New Jersey Devils his first year. Same with the San Jose Sharks. Back-to-back conference finals with Vegas. Great top line for this team. They brought in Mason Marchment, so on and so forth, right? Jake Ottinger, let's see if he can play like he did in the postseason this past season. They're going to be very good. In fourth, I've got the Nashville Predators. Yeah, where is the Minnesota Wild, right? So the Preds are my wild card number one. They improved in the offseason by adding Nino Niederreiter for the middle six forward group. And also they got Ryan McDonough for some good defensive depth. Roman Josi on the backside. Yusei Saros. This team is going to be great. And in fifth, I've got the Wild. Certainly a shocking pick here. One reason is because I think the Pacific Division got a lot better in this offseason. Watch my division preview if you haven't already. And the Wild lost Kevin Fiala, and they weren't even that great in regulation this past season. They weren't as good as their record overall would indicate. So because Nashville and I think Dallas also got better in the offseason, I think the Wild will miss the playoffs. However, with an outstanding prospect pool, this team could actually dominate this division next season and beyond. And the other three teams I have missing the playoffs in the Central, I've got the Winnipeg Jets, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Arizona Coyotes. Now for Winnipeg, they could still possibly compete for the playoffs. They would need a big kind of Vezina caliber season from Connor Hellebuck. But the thing is, I'm not entirely sold on this forward core. I think they need to shake things up a little bit. Even though Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers are fantastic players, do we see them possibly deal somebody like Blake Wheeler or Mark Scheifele? I think there needs to be a bit of a shakeup here. However, they could still be pretty good considering Rick Bowness got the Dallas Stars to a Stanley Cup final in 2020. And we finish with the Pacific Division, and yes, this is the boldest of the four divisions. So I got the Calgary Flames finishing first. I would argue this team actually got better in the offseason despite losing Tkachuk and also Johnny Gaudreau. They got themselves Jonathan Huberdeau, one of the best playmakers in the NHL. I think Mackenzie Weegar is going to have a fantastic year in Daryl Sutter's system. And they also signed Nazem Kadri, who was a beast in the regular season and in the playoffs with the Avalanche. So I've got them at number one. Oilers at number two. They're still a very good team. They're only going to get better with McDavid and Draisaitl. And of course, they bring Jack Campbell in as the number one starter. In third, I've got the Vancouver Canucks. I think that third, fourth, and fifth, you could really interchange these teams. But for me, the Canucks, they were fantastic under Bruce Boudreau. They've got Thatcher Demko, who's going to have an excellent season. I'll talk about him in just a little bit. And the center depth for this team is very strong as well. Look out for a couple breakout performances from wingers like Kuzmenko and Podkolzin as well. And finishing fourth in the Pacific and making that second wild card, I have the Vegas Golden Knights. Kind of a bold prediction here. I've kicked out the Kings from last year, even though they got better in this offseason. So Vegas, just 2 seasons ago, right? They were a conference final team. And yeah, they've lost some players since then. But even so, give me a full season of Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, Riley Smith, and Alec Martinez. And I think they can go toe-to-toe with some of the middle pack teams in this division. And don't forget, they hired Bruce Cassidy as their head coach. I think that could be an upgrade. So that means that despite acquiring Kevin Fiala, the LA Kings are out of the playoff picture. I've got them finishing fifth. Yeah, I think they're going to be a great team later on in this decade. That could be even 2 years from now. But I don't know, they took a huge step forward this past season, making the playoffs kind of out of nowhere. Despite overall a consistently good season, I don't know, man. I just think that Bruce Boudreau and Bruce Cassidy behind the bench in comparison to Todd McClellan, I would hedge my bet with these other two teams that missed the playoffs this past season. So, hey, again, disagree with me all you want. So in sixth, I've got Seattle. I think this team is actually pretty well built, despite not having a monster top line. I think Matty Beniers is going to be a great rookie in this NHL this upcoming season. The defense is pretty well constructed as well. Plus, they also added a new goaltending coach. If that can help Drieger when he gets healthy and help Philip Grubauer especially bounce back, I think Seattle could be a pretty competitive club. And then at the bottom, I've got the Ducks, still kind of young in a few positions out there, but this team will dominate the Pacific later on in this decade. I was kind of convinced that they could challenge for a wild card spot, kind of like they did earlier last year, but I just don't think they're quite there yet. And in eighth, I've got my favorite team, the San Jose Sharks. They got worse this offseason, trading away Brent Burns. Tank hard for Bedard. Let's go, baby. Now, here are my predictions for the award winners at the end of this upcoming season. Lots of bold predictions in there, but really the way that you can judge this is kind of like players who will enter that conversation to compete for the awards. So really the only, I think, absolutes here on this list are Austin Matthews winning the Rocket Richard. I don't see anybody challenging him, and Connor McDavid winning the Art Ross. But for the Hart Trophy, how about Nikita Kucherov? Look at that last season. He was only playing in 47 games, but he had 69 points. Nice. And also, he had a monster playoffs. So Stamkos had a terrific season last year. I think it's Kucherov's turn. The guy's 29 years old, still in his prime. And with the Lightning losing Andre Palat, he's going to have to be a key driver offensively for this team. So Kucherov for the Hart. McDavid for the Art Ross. Calder, why not Matty Beniers? He had 3 goals and 6 assists in 10 games with Seattle in a brief appearance last season. Rocket Richard, Austin Matthews, no surprise there. Vezina Trophy, Thatcher Demko, I've been saying it for over a year now that he would at least be a finalist for this award, and given that I have the Canucks finishing 3rd in the Pacific, I could definitely see him winning the Vezina Trophy. Norris Trophy, why not Shea Theodore for the Golden Knights? This guy finished 6th in Norris voting, not last season, but the prior 2 seasons. So Shea Theodore, he can add a lot of productivity back there for a good Golden Knights defense. Why not him? I think that, again, looking at a player who's going to have a career season in order to get his team back into the playoffs, so that's why I've gone with him. The Selke Trophy, Valeri Nichushkin. Wow, what a fantastic year he had with Colorado this past season, a career high in points, but really he's a great 3-zone player. You saw it in the postseason as well. I really do think that he'll be in that conversation. He has been a bit before, but given that he's now a bona fide top 6 forward, yeah, it's going down this year, I believe. Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year, DJ Smith with the Ottawa Senators, as I see them making the playoffs for the first time since 2017. And lastly, I don't have it on here on screen, but my Jennings Trophy winner, I'll say the New York Rangers with the likes of Igor Shesterkin and Yaroslav Halak. All right, now let's have some fun looking at my playoff bracket for this upcoming year. We've got some bold predictions here for sure, at least to start things out. So we're going to begin in the Eastern Conference with the Atlantic Division. First of all, I've got the Ottawa Senators upsetting the #1 seed in the East, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Look, the Leafs haven't given me a reason as to why I should predict them to get past the first round. They're just not a team that's built for the playoffs. I hope they destroy that narrative, though, this upcoming season. So the upstart Ottawa Senators move on to the second round. And then we've got the Battle of Florida in the first round, Tampa versus Florida. I'll take the Tampa Bay Lightning, just too good of defense and goaltending versus Florida, and they swept them this past year as well. So that gives us Tampa and Ottawa in the second round. I don't think that many people are going to predict this in their bracket this season, but I've got the Lightning moving on to the conference final. I just can't imagine Tampa not winning at least 2 rounds once again. Now let's get into the Metropolitan side of the bracket. So I've got the Rangers defeating the Capitals in the first round. So Washington, that would mean 5 straight years bowing out in the first round. That could cost Laviolette his job. I just don't think that they have the offense to break through that excellent New York defense and goaltending. And for the other matchup, I actually have the Pittsburgh Penguins upsetting the Carolina Hurricanes. I think here that experience gets the best of youth. The Penguins, again, an underrated team heading into this year. I really wanted to predict them to go even further, maybe even get to the Stanley Cup final. However, I just can't imagine them breaking through the Hurricanes defense and then break through the Rangers defense right after that. So I've got the Rangers defeating the Penguins to get into the conference final. Now let's get into the Western Conference, the first 2 rounds here. So I've got, in the Central Division, I've got the #1 seed Colorado Avalanche defeating the Nashville Predators. I hope Jussi Saros is healthy for this one. This series could actually be a lot closer than you might think, but I can't imagine the Avalanche bowing out in the first round after winning the Stanley Cup this past year. And I've got the Dallas Stars over the St. Louis Blues. I think goaltending is the big story there with the likes of Jake Ottinger. We don't know which Jordan Binnington we're going to get necessarily. And then here we go in the second round. I've got the Dallas Stars upsetting the Colorado Avalanche. I think Dallas would present a very interesting matchup for the Avs. The goaltending is stronger, the defense is still pretty good, and that top line could go toe-to-toe with Colorado's top line. Again, probably a really close series, but I am sold that Peter DeBoer in his first year with a new team that has improved with the likes of Mason Marchment, I think this team could actually make a deep run. And in the Pacific, it's a little bit more linear here. So I've got the Calgary Flames defeating the Vegas Golden Knights. I just think that they're too much as it pertains to defense. Their goaltending is better than Vegas's, and the forward group is at least comparable. And then we have the Edmonton Oilers defeating the Vancouver Canucks. Really here, the story would be Edmonton's power play versus Vancouver's penalty kill. The PK was tied for 30th last year. Oilers with a fantastic man advantage, and so I think that's the story in that series. So that would set up, yes, the Battle of Alberta in the second round, but this time I've got the Calgary Flames marching on. I think Jacob Markstrom finds a way to bounce back. It would be one hell of a second round, though. Now we get to the conference final. So we'll start with the East. It's a rematch of last year. It's the New York Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and this time I think the Rangers finish the fight here and defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa, they just run out of gas ultimately after runs to the Stanley Cup final the past 3 postseasons. So New York Rangers go into that Stanley Cup. And in the Western Conference, we've got the Calgary Flames and the Dallas Stars. And just like last year, a really close series, but with the likes of Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, and Nazem Kadri, Mr. Playoffs, I think that the Calgary Flames move on to the Stanley Cup final. So that means our Stanley Cup final matchup is the Calgary Flames against the New York Rangers. The Rangers are still a little bit green in a couple of positions out there with the likes of Lafreniere, Kakko, and Hedl. The Flames have the experience. Daryl Sutter has won 2 Stanley Cups. Gerard Gallant has gone to a final. And Igor Shesterkin is the better goaltender. But not in this series. Jacob Markstrom wins the Conn Smythe. The Calgary Flames win their first Stanley Cup since 1989. The first Stanley Cup to be hoisted for a Canadian team since 1993. There you go. Those are my season predictions. What are yours? Give me your 4 division winners. Give me your Stanley Cup final matchup and your champion. Let me know in the comments down below, guys. Stick around for more great content throughout the season. If you like more content like this and want to support my work as we climb through 5,000 subscribers, hopefully 10K by the end of the season, become a member. You'll get all sorts of exclusive content. You can also leave a super thanks or a donation. Just see the video description down below for that. And keep up with me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. And stick around, guys, because my next videos are going to be vlogs from the Global Series in Prague, so you won't want to miss out on that. Hit the notification bell. And guys, I'm fired up for this upcoming season, and I hope you are too. So leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you around for more rockin' content throughout this whole season, the postseason, and beyond. Once again, guys, thank you so much for helping us reach 5,000 subscribers and for getting all the way to the end of this video. Once again, I'm Nick. I'll catch you Twisters later. Ciao.